Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Eugene's January 31st, 2025 program, Preparing the Next Generation of Indigenous Leaders. My name's Andrew Calick, and I'm City Club's president. We're coming to you from a very special location this morning, the Many Nations Longhouse on the campus of the University of Oregon, and it's my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our speakers and to all of you joining us here in person in this beautiful space, as well as online and over the radio. The University of Oregon is located on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in western Oregon. Today, descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon, and continue to make important contributions in their communities, at UO, and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. We express our respect for all federally recognized tribal nations of Oregon. This includes the Burns-Paiute tribe, the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians of Oregon, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the Coquille Indian Tribe, the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, and the Klamath Tribes. We also express our respect for all other displaced indigenous peoples who call Oregon home. Now, since 1990, City Club has been dedicated to our founding mission to build community vision through open inquiry. In accordance with our mission and purpose, we hope to help connect people throughout our community and across generations, identities, experiences, and perspectives. There's a lot of young people in the room this week, which is not always typical, and we're so glad you're here, so thank you. You are invited this week and every week to join us in this effort, to share your wisdom, to learn something new, and to take active steps to make a difference in this city and region that we love. Of course, we cannot do this work alone, so a special thank you to our Platinum, Community, and Diamond sponsors. The Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, serving as a catalytic leader in creating a vibrant and diverse economy that drives economic opportunity and well-being. Kaiser Permanente, which exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. More information at www.kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. More information at uoregon.edu. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. And thank you to the City of Eugene and to Lane County for their support as well. With that, I'll turn the mic over to Joel Corin, the chair of City Club's program committee and the coordinator of today's program. Joel.
Thank you. Succession planning. Every community, business, organization needs to raise the leaders of the future to ensure continuity of its values and culture. The University of Oregon has a robust collaborative program with various tribes in Oregon and beyond. UO offers specific programs for Indigenous students, including an array of activities here in the Many Nations Longhouse. These programs nourish skills, preparing students to assume leadership roles in tribal governance and in a wider society. Our speakers today include Jason Yonker, PhD, Chief of the Coquille Tribe, located in southwestern Oregon, and Assistant Vice President and Advisor to the President on Sovereignty and Government-to-Government Relations here at the U of O. He earned a PhD in anthropology from the UO in 2004, taught at Rochester Institute of Technology for a decade before returning to Oregon. He received the prestigious Eli S. Parker Award from the American Indian Science and Engineering Society in 2014 for his work with tribal governance, students, and higher education. He is past president of the Association of Indigenous Anthropologists and is originally from Coos Bay. Our first student speaker is Tae Phillips Brown, member of the Palma Band of Mission Indians. He's a second-year student majoring in linguistics and Native American Indigenous Studies here at the U of O. He comes from the Palma Reservation, located in Palma Valley in Southwest California. He chose to attend the UO because he wanted to study in a place where he would feel represented and make a difference. And he is the 24-25 Mr. Indigenous here at the U of O. You can tell by his sack. Christina Thomas is a member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, both from Wasco and Warm Springs tribes, and grew up on the Warm Springs Reservation in Oregon. She is a third-year student majoring in human anatomy and physiology with minors in chemistry and NAIS and a pre-med focus. She serves as a 24-25 cultural ambassador, as well as the lead assistant steward here at the Longhouse and a co-director of the Women's Wellness and Marginalized Genders program. In addition to all that, she works part-time as a medical assistant. Turn the program over to Jason.
Thank you very much, Joel. It's a pleasure to have all of you in our house. What they didn't say is that you are literally surrounded by Indians. All of our students are, well, I shouldn't say all of our students are here, but many of our students are here. And it's always good to have them. You may see them coming in and out. We never close off this building for any event because we have a nice little pantry over there, and the food don't get in front of people who need food. And so they come through, they load up their backpacks, they go off to class, they come back here, they eat. But that's one of the amenities of this space to begin with. I've been here since, other than teaching in New York, been here since 1994 as a graduate student. And at that time we had a longhouse that was very, very old. It was an old army barracks. The toilet had fallen through the floor. There was a tree growing up through the floor. The heat was way up or no heat at all. It was just a very uncomfortable location, but it was our place. We quickly outgrew that building and needed a space to meet the population of natives that were on campus, and in 2005, the Many Nations Longhouse was open. Every single tribe in Oregon contributed either money or resources, timber. The Burns Paiute provided wada seeds, and for our living roof, there's just so much support and community that exists in this longhouse. I'm sure you will hear from the two student speakers on what that means to them. As chief of the Coquel, it does give me an interesting position where I travel back and forth to work for my tribe, as well as work for the president, Carl Schultz. The most important part of my job is to make sure that this continues to be a welcome space, that it continues to be a location where we can all meet all at the same time. Unfortunately, and fortunately, our population in the last 3 years has grown from 40 citizens of federally recognized tribes to 188 citizens. That is an extraordinary number on any campus in the United States, and I would suspect that we rival, if not top, everybody. You'll hear about the Stanfords, but they're going on numbers that are self-identified numbers. We actually count citizenship. There are a number of things that are here on campus that it's my job as the tribal relations individual to make sure that the relationships we've developed over the course of, since 1970, that these are maintained. I operate for the president, the Native American Advisory Council, the only Native American Advisory Council in the United States that has all 9 federally recognized tribes of the state sitting, the chairs of those tribes sitting on this council with the president, who then they advise the president on very long-term goals and strategies to support Native students. The land acknowledgement, Mary Layton stole that from me, by the way. She's my former neighbor, and she said, "Do you have a land acknowledgement?" I said, "Yeah, I negotiated it with the Siletz and the Grand Ronde. Why don't you use this?" And I reminded her, I said, land acknowledgements are wonderful, but it takes action behind those words for them to mean anything. The University of Oregon, our land acknowledgement and our actions predated land acknowledgement to begin with. They are popular functions at meetings, but it takes the action after which. And so, if you look onto our campus, you can see all kinds of examples. You have the Home Flight Scholars Program. Again, that is a social support and tuition support program, which exploded our numbers here in the state of Oregon. But also you have the 9 federally recognized flags flying in the center of campus. You have Kalapuya Ilahi, which is the native dorm, as we call it, right over there. And we have academic residential communities where if you are a Native student, you can live on the same floor as other Natives. Northwest Indian Language Institute, Sapshikwatla, just so many different things that are an umbrella of support for our existing Native students. I have been just so pleased to play a small role, and I know that the success that I experienced today has been because it's been built on generations before me. Each of us has had ancestors that sacrificed and survived so that we could make the choices that we do today. And if we dishonor the choices that we have, then we also dishonor our ancestors. So I always keep that in mind as we move forward. We don't take big, huge steps all at once. Steady progress is always the best for not only a big institution like the University of Oregon, but also when you have 9 political entities, sovereign domestic governments, like the 9 tribes in Oregon. And right now, I'm going to pass it off to Christina, and she can say what she needs to say.
Okay. Nich Pachwai Wanashosh Christina Thomas, Washnash Shadaikva Ku Wasku. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina Thomas. I'm both Wasco and Warm Springs, and I'm honored to be here with you all and share this space with you. Like everyone mentioned, I'm the cultural ambassador for the 2024-2025 school year. And my main goal is for students to feel safe and represented on campus, specifically the LGBTQ2+ community. I really want to advocate for other Natives that want to attend higher education institutions and really just allow people to feel welcome here and seen here. I am on the side of being a Native advocate. My future ambitions include going to medical school and eventually specializing in pediatric oncology. While this is not a direct need in my own community, as it is very small, I hope that I can more broadly take care of and care for families of Indigenous students across the nation, specifically Indigenous children. So I've been a health technician at my local Indian Health Services in Warm Springs for the past 4 years, and I had to transition here to being a medical assistant here in Eugene, and it's been a huge difference serving a much different population, whereas I was just serving all of my family members. I'm also a OHSU research mentor, as well as a Knight Scholar alumni for the past 4 years. And I'm also a graduate of the On Track OHSU program as well. I didn't ever plan on going to the University of Oregon just because I only grew up on my reservation, so I was really ambitious to leave. Oregon was the only in-state school I had applied to, and I chose to stay because I won 4 full rides here, so it would be kind of stupid of me to not stay. But then I longed so much to leave my home, and now that I finally have, it's like all I miss is my family, and I'm on the phone with them almost every day, like, I miss you guys, let me come home. So yeah, that's just the life of a Native student, is like making that journey back home and always having the intention of going back home. I think we all have different identities, and home plays a big role in our life choices always. That's a little bit about me. I will pass it to my roommate and colleague, Ted Brown.
Miriam chacham ikon na tung te to khashaka no pamangai as go through no yo Vanessa to khash na kwa Alfred to khash na to sini divijaka. Hello everybody. Like they said before, I'm Ted Brown. I am from the Palma Band of Mission Indians in Southern California. My mother's Vanessa Brown, my grandmother is Cindy Devers, and my grandfather is Alfred Brown Jr. I like to start by saying I am a guest here on Kalapuya Ilihi. This is not my homelands, and I'm very grateful to be able to be here and study here. Just being able to be a Native in higher education is very much a blessing to be able to sit before you guys, you know. This is really cool. I represent the Mr. Indigenous title for this school year, 2024 to 2025. And what that means to me is being able to give people a space where they feel represented in predominantly underrepresented places. I think like most Natives, I didn't think about college. It wasn't until my senior year I was like, hey, you know, maybe I should. Like my family would always tell me, you should go to college, think about it, do something with your life, you know. My uncles are firefighters, you know, so I was like, maybe I'll go do that. Maybe I'll become like a medic or something, I don't know. I'll figure something out. My family's also a military family. There's another option, but I just thought, why not go to school and push myself to something I feel like I couldn't do a year ago, you know? So being able to say, well, maybe I can do this, in coming into a space where I had seen that Native American Indigenous Studies was a new major here. So I said, well, I'll try it out. I came in as a business major, and my stepdad is a doctor in linguistics. So he really pushed me towards working with my own language. And that's my intent, is when I'm done with college, maybe I'll go for like a doctorate, you know, maybe I'll continue college, but my end goal is to go back and teach my language to my people and continue that, because language is such an important part of who we are as Native people. Without language, you know, you don't have culture. Without culture, who are we as people, you know? So I think coming here has been a very good experience. I'm a second year. Last year I was a part of the NASARC, which is, as Jason explained, you're just living with a bunch of Natives and you get to be in commune with them, which is really cool when you're off the res, because I was so scared to leave the reservation, but my family, my tribe, everyone told me, you know, the res is going to be there when you come back. It's not going to go anywhere. They weren't wrong. So when I'm up here and I get to meet a bunch of people from all across Indian country, it's so cool to see the familiar faces and familiar tribes from back home. There was 2 other Southern California Natives who came up here as well. So just being able to know that, oh, well, there's people who also took that step away from the res is really heartwarming, and it makes me feel like as a people, we are going to continue to do what we've always done, and that's thrive, you know. No matter what, we're always going to have that space, like the Longhouse, to just be ourselves, you know. I'm unapologetically Indian, you know what I mean? So I'm also a steward here at the Longhouse. I just started this term officially, so that's pretty cool. I am also a co-director for the Indigenous Men's Marginalized Genders Wellness Club, which is a kind of like a sistering club to the Women's Indigenous Marginalized Gender Club. And the reason I started that was because as a Native man, I feel we don't talk enough about our own issues, mentally, physically, spiritually. We don't get that space, and one of my cousins, my little cousin, he had passed away from suicide, and that's very hard as a Native people because most men don't get to talk about their feelings until it's too late, And being an Indigenous man, I feel you get less of that space, and it's hard to take up that space. So when I had come to the realization that we needed a space of our own, but not try to step on the toes of everybody else and say, well, you guys have a club, so why shouldn't we? I wanted to do it out of respect and care for not only the Indigenous women, the marginalized genders, but also the men too. So that way you can have a safe space wherever you go. So my continuation of what I'm doing is to continue to push people to come to college and say there's going to be that space for you no matter where you go. You're always welcomed, no matter your skin color, no matter your length of your hair, no matter how big your nose is, you know what I mean? You're always going to have that space. So just letting people know that you're always welcome wherever you go, and you're going to be you, and at the end of the day, you can't help it, So I just want you all to know that no matter what, you're all cared for. That's my big goal, is to let everyone know that there's a space for you no matter where you go. You're always welcome somewhere, and if you have nobody to talk to, I'll be here, you know what I mean? So, so the ARC was a really, really fun time for me. I got to meet a bunch of new people. With the Indigenous title, the Mr. Indigenous title, this summer I got to travel along the Powwow Trail. I went all the way out to Rocky Boy, Montana. I went down to Fort Duchesne, Utah. As a grass dancer, I've grew up doing powwow dance my whole life. My family sings, and even though that's not traditionally our way, that was the way that we were gifted to publicly express ourselves growing up, because our traditions are closed off for ceremony only. So my grandpa, he got to bring us into that way and tell us, this is a social way that you can express yourself, but also respect it. You show respect, respect comes back to you. So that's all I'd like to say. So hatiach, thank you all.
Thank you all so much. We'll begin question and answer with our student leaders in just a moment, but first a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station KLCC FM 89.7 for airing City Club programs Monday nights at 7 p.m. For those listening at home or in the car right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning into City Club on KLCC. We love that you are here. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived on KLCC, as well as on our YouTube channel and as podcasts. We'll take a brief break before returning for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So this land that we are now, I got my first job out of the university working with the native program that was in one of those huts too, right next to what was the log house at that time. So I'm returning here after, 46 years or so. I worked here for, it was a residential program for men who came out of prison. Right, okay. It's a soft thing, right? And, as government funding goes, we were totally underfunded. I actually was a federal grant to be an educator, And eventually, after a few months, 9 months or so, they asked me to take on the position of program director. So we had no 24-hour staff. We had nobody here after 5 or 6 on a Friday. So I'd come in, I'd go, okay, where's the recent bullet hole in the wall? Where's the machete under the mattress? All of that stuff. So we then had to make it a outpatient, basically for the whole community. And we renamed it Wamligleska, and we moved over to West 10th over there. So for me, it's like to be on the same place where the evolution occurred for so long is quite an honor.
The original longhouse, it used to be a series of 4 or 5 different,
Right.
military barracks.
Uh-huh.
And we always used to say, this is a wonderful place because it was ours.
Uh-huh.
And over time, all the other barracks got torn down. Ours was condemned 3 times. And we always knew that it was we
Yeah, I did.
security system. And it was the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
step.
They go good on your water bottle or your laptop.
So if anybody was slipping away,
I know I got a water bottle for every occasion. I've got like different stickers on each water bottle.
Hey,
Saw YouTube. So, are you also some art that I make?
yeah, and that's
Yeah, I sell them to make money.
Welcome back to City Club of Eugene January 31st program. The first question is for all three, starting with Jason, dealing with the governance of the tribes. How are you selected chief? What are your duties? Do you rule alone or do you have a board? Go ahead.
Well, I try to rule alone, but everybody rules me out. I am an elected official. My responsibility is cultural and spiritual guidance of the tribe, but the chairwoman is actually the one that organizes all 7 members of the tribal council. We are a staggered elected group every 3 years, and I attained my position because the previous chief, Chief Don Ivy, had passed away, but right before he passed away, gave me a tap on the shoulder and says, "You're it." So sometimes that's how it happens. It happens naturally. Our governance system was given to us by the United States. So when we were restored, they said, you will have a chair, you will have a vice chair, you will have a representative, a secretary. Oh, I suppose you can have a chief too. But the word chief really doesn't, it's not our word. It never came from our mouths, that sound. But if somebody walks into your village and asks, well, who's in charge here? It wouldn't be the males, it would be the females. And so we were, in virtually every tribal governing system, traditional governing system was through the females. They were the multiculturalists, the multilinguists. They left their home to live in their father or in their new husband's village, and there they taught their children both cultures. So for my tribe, that's kind of how it works out.
So I'm from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. My tribe's a confederacy of both the Wasco, the Paiute, and the Warm Springs people. We have 3 different tribes, one for each nation. The Wasco chief, it used to be that all 3 tribes, it was a birthright, and it was something that was passed down for generations. Our Wasco chief recently passed, and he didn't have an elected offspring. So we took that into a voting system, and it sounds like for the Wasco Nation, we're just going to keep re-electing and maintain it as like a vote democracy. And then for council, everyone is elected officials. Running for council is something that people just are elected to do. You have to be nominated to run for council, and then everyone just votes, and then whoever gets the most votes sits on that council, and then the chiefs kind of just direct from there.
So I am from the Palma Band Mission Indians, Southern California again. We also kind of operate the same way, except we don't have a chief, we have a chairman. So for me, it's always going to be one of my uncles who are chairman, because no matter what, they're all family. So it went from my uncle Temet to my uncle Temet. I got 2 different Temet uncles. So, but yeah, it operates the same way. I think we go off of every 4 years, so kind of like how the presidential works, except we're like a year off based off of that. But yeah, it's operating almost the same way. You have to be nominated. You go through a voting system during the meeting. It kind of gets hectic because I sit in most of the time because I'm not a voting citizen until I'm 21. We still haven't gone down to 18 yet, so we keep it at 21 for our group. But sitting in on those meetings is pretty fun, because you get to hear, oh, I nominate this person. And they're like, no, I don't want to do it. And then everybody's throwing their names in the hat. And it's just, it goes down and then it settles, then it boils again, and then it settles. It's really interesting. So, yeah. Yeah.
Kelly Johnson, City Club member. Thank you all for inviting us into the Longhouse here today. It's a really beautiful space. I have a question about the U of O and how they incorporate feedback from Native students. You talked about kind of incremental change, and I think the students both mentioned clubs and initiatives that they have started. So what does it take for the students to identify a need or a program and then for it to become alive within the university?
The good example is Indigenous Women's Wellness Group and Indigenous Men's Group. Those were created, first the women during missing and murdered and missing Indigenous women's movement. And there were other occurrences here on campus. It was just absolutely necessary, and that we have a place for our students to meet regularly and talk about things that were happening. The same thing goes for the men's group. And today, the hot topic is student loans, federal funding, oligarchy, and these are stresses not only on our students here on campus writ large, but for Native students who have left their countries and have come here and don't have anybody to talk to in their community about these things. So I would say it does boil down to Jason Yonker has to be listening all the time, but there are others, Katie Staten, Norma Treffren, there's just others. We have 11 Native faculty members, so the Native American Strategies Group, all of these things really, you take time to figure out how you can accomplish them, and very steady, slow steps, but sometimes you have to start something right now, and that's the way we did it for these two particular groups.
To add on to that, sorry, that was really loud. I think Indigenous staff and students here are all very self-motivated and very eager because we're very obviously underrepresented and under-supported by the government system of the University of Oregon as well as the government as a whole. So we are very just self-motivated. I know that I have gone to Jason and Katie multiple times, brought up some ideas to them. They always are supportive, and if they can't support me, then they'll turn me to someone who can. And they're just like the black market for resources. So I really appreciate them for that. Even the small things, like Katie, when she goes to Costco for our food pantry, she always texts us and say, is there anything you need? Is there anything you want to see here? They're always trying to just meet our basic needs at minimum, and what we envision for ourselves and our futures. They also push us to go for those and see change as a whole. When I was trying to fundraise money for royalty, I held a cakewalk, and Jason showed up, and his wife donated like $300 in cash just to see a pie thrown in his face. So I feel very supported by our Indigenous staff here, and I'm very honored that they have our backs, and the rest of the students as well. We always push each other to do better, to seek more than what the UO gives us, I guess. So
yeah, I thought I had put $100, I put like $130 in somebody else's jar. And the next thing I know, they're throwing pie in my face. She about broke my nose.
Hi, I'm Kellyanne Stiles, and my grandmother tells me that we're half Irish and small parts Cherokee, so I'm glad to be here. But I also thank you for welcoming us here as your guest too, and for telling us parts of your inspirational stories, the good and the difficult. I appreciate that. I'm also a member of Junior League Eugene and Lane County Against Trafficking, because my daughter, who was half East Indian, became a victim of sex trafficking and has died in 2024 and left her son with her. And I've also, as a member of Lane County Against Trafficking, done a lot to try to raise awareness against human trafficking. So I would like to invite you and anyone else who would be interested in attending our Human Trafficking Awareness seminar on March 13th at the Holt Center. And it's at 5:30, and dinner is provided. And we have a lot of well-experienced people who actually rescue victims. But I'm wondering, because I've been going to powwows since I was probably in the 80s, off and on, and did a lot before 2024. But I'm wondering what is available to help raise awareness against the murdered, missing Indigenous and trafficking among the natives, American Native communities. I have friends on Facebook who are well known. They've even been on 2020 news show talking about it and everything, and they do a lot in Montana and Wyoming and places like that. But I honestly don't hear or see very much said about it or done about it here, except when I've attended the Take Back the Night. Then I will see them there, and they have the red hand paint on their face, that kind of thing. So since I'm trying to go ahead and volunteer anywhere and everywhere to do this, I'm wondering what I can do to support you in that, if you have people available and organizations, and if you'd like to join us in doing what we're trying to do to raise awareness against human trafficking, especially child sex trafficking.
Okay, I'll put that event on my calendar.
Thank you.
We have Take Back the Night every year. We have the Women's Wellness and Marginalized Genders group during that month of MMIW, the movement. We have a lot of support going on. It's just a really hard month. The NACE ARC also holds poetry in the park that honors missing and murdered Indigenous women and peoples. We go around and read poems written by female authors about the movement, and we just stand in solidarity and feel that hurt and that loss that we have all experienced in one way or another together. From that, I think we all just envision change and heal a little bit in that movement. We also have, last year we had a local event speaker come in from, where was she from?
Switzerland.
No, she was from one of the tribes here, and she came to talk about like self-defense tactics and what we can do to keep ourselves safe and the people at risk, most at risk here. So during the month of MMIW, we do try to do a lot of events and have a lot of support. Sometimes it can be overwhelming and hard because a lot of us have lost people to this epidemic, but we do try our best, and I'm sure we would all love to see you involved in our community just as much as we want to get involved in yours, so thank you.
What month is that? Is it April, Sexual Assault Month? Okay.
I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and I am sorry for your loss. That is really hard. I also know that last year at the powwow, they did a MMIW special, and it was red dress, so you would go out there in your red and you represent just the hurt and the grief of that, because that is really difficult. Mm-hmm. And no matter what standpoint you're at, it's hard to see people that you love lost like that. So I am sorry for you and your loss.
Thank you.
So I think I speak for all of us when we say we would love to have you involved more, especially around here on campus.
Thank
So
you, I appreciate
thank you for your work. Yeah.
Question from our online audience. Thomas Hura, our president-elect here at City Club, asks if you think there are misconceptions that people have about Indigenous students at the University of Oregon, and if so, how you would respond to those.
I think there's a common misconception about, most Native Americans just being drunks and, just heavy alcoholics. They don't do anything. And, it's not true. A lot of us are hardworking. We push ourselves as much as we can to get involved within the communities. Like me, I tried to wedge myself in everywhere I can. Not being from here, I love to see change. My family has always been fighting for a lot of change back home. Just the misconceptions that all we do is just sit around and live off the government. It's not true. We fight hard, It hurts a lot to see a lot of the people just, oh, you guys are nothing but like bums. You just live off of your casino money, this and that. But a lot of us have to fight for what we have. Even NASU as a program, the Native American Student Union, it's inherited. When me and Christina got selected to go represent the Native American students in the Big Ten conference, we got to go to that. And man, a lot of those schools don't have as much representation as we do. And when they asked us, well, how did you get most of this? The only thing we could say is it was inherited to us. This is years and years of fighting to get where we're at now. The powwows on the wall, the pictures, the flyers. This is years of work that has been put in before us, and all we're here to do is continue it and make sure that it's going to get passed on to the next group past us. So just know that we are hard-fighting people, and you can't kill us off. You know, they tried. They tried multiple times to get rid of us. No matter where you're at in the country, you'll run into one, you'll run into 10. You know what I mean? So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
There's lots of things, lots of misconceptions out there, and you know, Hollywood-driven. But there are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. If you've met one tribe, you've only met one tribe. If you go to Europe, it's the same. It's the same thing out there. So it's you know there you can't isolate a tribe with a picture that is false to begin with. We are not all Apaches. We did not all chase after you know, the wagon trains. We are just inherited from our ancestors what was privileges given to us for all the land that was taken. So we are just trying to maintain what we currently have. And Tay's right, you can't live off the government. The government is fickle. We've known that for ages. It's not just a now problem. We've known that forever.
For me, the biggest misconception I run into quite often is like this stereotype that everything is just given to us by the government or by some outside source. And I kind of just laugh every time I hear that because it's very, very frustrating, especially where I come from, where we didn't have clean water until like this year. We've been struggling just getting clean water for so long, and we've gone without like any, like even dirty water for like 2 weeks. And to struggle all the way from that, and like, especially when people are like, well, you have free health care. Like, have you ever seen an Indian Health Services? They're never adequately funded. They're not adequately staffed. It's just the bottom of all of the resources. It's like the VA, but worse. So I hate that stereotype. Everything we have, we fought really hard to get. Nothing was ever handed to us. It's always been 1,000 times harder to get where we are right now. And to get where anyone else is, it's always going to be harder for us just because of who we are and because of our history. So, yeah, I don't agree with that.
Hi, Sandy Smalley. I have two questions. One very basic one. What do you prefer to be referred to? Indigenous, Native American, Indian? Do you have preferences so that those of us who are not can address you properly?
That is a very, very good question. So the official government terms are American Indian, Alaskan Native. Two distinct differences between Alaskan Natives and American Indian. And what I tell my students is that if you go to Copenhagen and somebody says, where are you from? Oh, I'm from the United States. Oh, where in the United States? Oh, from New York. Oh, where in New York? Well, upstate New York. Oh, where in upstate New York? You know, and you can break it down, eventually get down to the hamlet that somebody's living in or the township that somebody's living in. For me, I am a citizen, I am a native Oregonian who's a citizen of the Coquel Indian tribe, but I'm Mishikwakmatane, and I don't expect all of you to say that. However, saying Coquel and referring to me as Coquel is the respect that anybody who knows you would extend to you. They wouldn't just come up to you and say, oh, you're Indian. Columbus was lost.
Yeah.
That's why we have that word. But using American Indian or Alaska Native, that is probably the easiest to remember. Native American confuses the whole situation because people born in America sometimes refer to themselves as Native American, and the word Indian is just way off. So that's how I think of it. That's how I teach my students, and so now you all have to refer to me, Chief of the Mishikwatmet Tenes.
Growing up in my household, my family is, I guess, sort of young. My mom's like in her 40s. She's pretty young still. My nana's like in her 50s. But they're very torn on that. My family's really torn on that because growing up they were called Indians, and like my nana has a sticker that says I was Indian before being Indian was cool. So I mean, a lot of the like prior words, but if you really want to break it down, I prefer to be known as Atach or Payom Koicham, people of the West. I'm Native American, Indian American, however you want to refer to me. But if you really know me and you want to get to know me, you'll refer to me as Atach, Palma Indian, Palma Indian, however you feel. But yeah, if like Jason said, you really break it down, you can't just walk up to somebody and be like, oh, you're Indian, but like, what type of Indian, It's like saying, what type of Caucasian are you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, are you like European, Irish, you got to really get specific sometimes. So that's all I have to say.
Do you have an opinion?
Oh, she does.
I agree with them, and I will hold my comments till the next question.
Okay, my other question is a little bit more specific about the university. You've made incredible inroads in attracting Indian, students. How'd you do that? What's your outreach to the community in communities in Oregon, but also nationwide?
It was the relationships that we built with the tribal governments that led to this expansive set of resources that we currently have. I attended the Big Ten meetings last year now, and we went all the way around the room, and they asked, oh, what kind of resources do you have for your American Indian Alaska Native population? And I was the last one to go, thank goodness, because they had nothing. They really had, oh, we got a student club. Oh, we got a Native professor. We have one of this. We have one of that. They really, really had nothing. And then I laid on to them everything that we have, and they were just absolutely shocked. And I reminded them that the only reason we have these things is because we started building a relationship with Native Americans back in 1969, when NASU first got started. Anton Minthorn of the Umatilla, who was the chair for the Umatilla for ages, asked for a building. And that became a place where they could meet. And that became the first longhouse, eventually replaced, and now this. But it is always, nothing substantial comes solely on an individual. It is always an accumulation of effort. And we have Anton Minthorn, George Wasson, we have lots of people to thank before us. Again, we have many who have been here, have sacrificed so that we now have the choices that we do. And I am terrifically blessed to have the Native students and what they do, because I remember when I was a student and not having any of that kind of support. So we just try to build and rebuild on existing foundations.
We've used the phrase, or you used the phrase, recognized tribes. Could you advise us of how a tribe becomes recognized, why it became necessary, and what are the advantages of being a recognized tribe?
Federally recognized tribes is the federal standard. You have to have had a treaty ratified by Congress or by the president. And unfortunately, in 1954, Western Oregon Indians were terminated. In fact, a whole 104 were terminated all across the United States. So the restorative process really emphasized the federally recognized tribes as opposed to those who are not recognized. Now we have a phrase that says, okay, they're a restored tribe. And that means that, you know, we had a horrible period of history where, you know, the federal government, we couldn't rely upon the federal government. They said, we want to be out of the American Indian business, and so let's go ahead and terminate them. Federally recognized tribes, all 574, have a government-to-government relationship with the Oval Office through the Bureau, through the Secretary of Interior and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So we are eligible for treaty provisions, we're eligible for other resources, but you have to be a citizen of a federally recognized tribe to receive those. It isn't anybody who can, self-determine. It has to be the government of the tribe who determines their citizenship.
Thank you, and thank you all for introducing us or allowing us to understand and learn more about your community and your intergenerational thinking. So often now, at open events, we hear the land acknowledgement, which is very, I think, consciousness raising and helpful. But then there is, as you said, the need for action after that. And I'm wondering what kind of actions or thinking would be useful on the part of those of us who are not Native American or American Indian, but would like to be allies.
Well, first of all, before I give it over to, and I assume that these are concluding remarks on our end, is that if you came here on the Thursday night community culture night, you would see between 120 and 150 people in this small space. The capacity is 120. Hopefully the fire marshal didn't hear that. However, that is, crowded is good, but we have outgrown this space. And Jean-Paul Jones, who was the architect for the American Indian Museum at the Smithsonian, built this longhouse. He's a graduate of the University of Oregon. This longhouse is half done. So it is supposed to go into this parking lot and into Columbia Street. And we maintain the footprint to expand this longhouse. We are at that point where we're going to have to do some serious fundraising or community awareness that, you know, at our Thursday night potlucks, we're going to have to draw numbers of who can go eat. There's just, I think the students are the ones that can share the most intimate needs that they have because they're immediate. The university can share the needs that they have because they are long-term. And so that's why I use the longhouse as an example for that.
I agree with Jason. When I first arrived on campus, I was looking for the longhouse. And I looked over at this building and I was like, what the heck is that short house over there? Longhouses, from where I'm from, are actually long buildings for ceremony and gatherings and fit a lot of people. And like he said, the fire marshal would not be happy with us. When it comes to needs, I think we all have very different needs just because of where we come from. My homelands are very different than Te's homelands. His resources are very different than mine. I think when you come into contact with other Native peoples and you want to be their ally, I think really listening to them is the first step, and hearing them and hearing their individual needs, as we are all very diverse people and we all need and desire different things. advocacy, number one, is very important, especially when it comes to federal government relations. We don't have a good history with that, so just having allies and knowing we have support out there of people who are willing to come to bat for us and just have human rights as functioning, that would be amazing.
Yeah, as for being an ally, I agree with Christina, but I also have to say the first step, in my opinion, is just wanting to do it. I always say the first step for anything is thinking about it and putting yourself towards it. So I definitely agree that you wanting to be an ally is very, very helpful, and it's very important because a lot of people, they say, you can say what you want to say, but you know, you could walk the walk, you got to talk the talk too, you know. A lot of people are very intimidated by trying to work with Native Americans. You know, some are like, oh, they really mean mug you, but it's like, you know, that's just how we look sometimes. You know, some of us don't get coffee in time, you know, but I think it's very good that people want to help. There's a lot of non-natives on campus who are allies that are supportive of what we do, and they come to the culture nights. And I think that that would be a good first step, just coming to culture nights, first and third Thursday, 5:30 at the Longhouse. There's a community dinner that we host. You sit down, you talk, meet new people who are in the same position as you that want to help. I think that's how a lot of good relationships start, just by taking that step and saying, I want to help. What can I do? There was a man who came in here last meeting, and he came up to me and just started talking to me saying, well, my family was one of the people who received the plots up here, and they were farmers, so they took that land, and I want to know what I can do to help give back to the community as a way to right my family's wrongs. And I said, that's really good that you want to do that, you know. So we just need more of that, more people who want to step out and say, I want to help make a difference, you know. So
I think we have time for one more. You mentioned, you know, the government doesn't give you things, and indeed, just this week there was, you know, reporting on the Siletz, I think, you know, spending their own money to purchase back 2,000 acres of land in Southern Oregon. And it got me thinking about something else you said earlier, which is this notion of home and how complicated it can be. And so my question is about that sentiment of home and what it means to have land, what you think about in terms of your past, present, and future relationship to that land, especially as young people in the community. Thanks.
I'm just going to talk based off of what I know from my home. Purchasing land it's a hard thing because a lot of people, they're not willing to sell back what was taken, because for them it's like an acceptance of defeat, and they're like, well, I guess it was taken, you know, I guess we can give it back to you. Some of them try to jack up the prices, and it's messed up. But my tribe, we have purchased back so much of our land that we had lost because a lot of it was given to farmers and a lot of it was just taken from us. So we live in a valley, and like we went coastal to mountain, and we had to claim a lot of our land back through village sites. And even then, most of it was torn down. We had a mountain where our chiefs were buried, and they tore half of it down for housing. And when we told them, you know, there's going to be remains there, and there's going to be our people, all of our stuff is still there, and they said, no, we'll see when we do it. And we protested, and surely enough, they found it, and they tried to give it back to us. We're like, we don't want that. You desecrated it, and now you're trying to just, it's like a slap in the face. And then they're like, oh, this is extra, and they spit in your face, you know. It's hard. As for up here, I can't really talk that much on it, but it is a difficult process to try to comprehend. It's like, I don't know how I would be able to describe it, but it literally is like just like spending money what shouldn't be spent at all on that. So as a Native people, you're constantly fighting back. Purchasing land is one of those steps back to regaining what was originally ours, and it's a process that's going to continue from years on from now. So.
I loved your question about what you said home means to all of us. I would define home as my family, the people who raised me and made me who I am today. I think of my relationship with the land, and most other natives' relationship with the land is very different than our peers, as when we solely steward the land here, everything was in harmony, and we didn't have to worry about the freaking Antarctica melting, and all of the issues we have to deal with now because we were environmentally conscious and we were in relationship to everything around us. So it's really frustrating to see on the news every other day what environmental efforts are not being made and all of these treaties that are being broken. It's very frustrating. And I don't know if you've ever been to Warm Springs, but there's like nothing there because we are so environmentally conscious. I went on a rafting trip this last summer and I actually got to see the entire span of what Warm Springs looks like because most of us don't get to because we own and operate 99% of our lands and our main effort is to buy back the land that we lost and just put it into conservation, to just let it heal and leave it be. So I think that home and our relationship to the land is very different in the best way possible. And I think if we had that relationship to home that we long for and that we need, we wouldn't have all of these issues about global warming. We wouldn't have to deal with all of this chaos in the world right now. So I think just trying to get our rights back as people will be healing just as a whole.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking our speakers. This has been our January 31st, 2025 conversation at the City Club of Eugene, live from the Many Nations Longhouse here at the University of Oregon. We'll be back at our regular location next week, the Wow Hall, for a program on providing support to Oregonians with disabilities. Until then, have a great weekend and see you soon.